Let me introduce you to the new Joker.
Joker, Folie, Deux, more like Joker, Folie, Huck, Tua. I'm so sorry. I'll never make that joke again. So Joker, Folie, Deux is the long-awaited sequel, well, to Joker. Yeah, so my feelings on this movie before going in are very complicated. Because I'm going to say something that might be a little hard to swallow, but I'm not the biggest fan of Joker. This goes for both the character and the movie. While I think he's a great foil to Batman, his character outside of that just never really appealed to me. And when he got his own solo movie, I gotta admit, at the time when I was a very naive lad, I rather enjoyed the first Joker movie. But upon revisiting it just so I'd have a fresh start before going into the sequel, it wasn't as good as the last time I saw it. Don't get me wrong, Joaquin Phoenix is goddamn incredible in this movie. Plus the cinematography and score made this movie way more watchable than it had any right to be. However, I found the story to be very redundant. Clearly, Todd Phillips has a favorite director, which has been a criticism I've had about him since War Dogs. A lot of what Martin Scorsese is known for, Todd Phillips really embodied the, hey, can I copy your homework? Yes, but change it up a little bit meme. Nothing against him, but I wish he had more of his own style. Also, Joker seems to attract a crowd of people that are less than favorable to be around, but I have to admit that even though I didn't think Joker needed a sequel, no pun intended, I was down to clown with it if it offered something new or bodacious. And I gotta admit, when I heard this movie was gonna be a musical, it really scratched my brain the right way. Plus the addition of Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn was an immediate yes from me. So I started to drop my cynicism and was open to seeing what this team could cook up with this new movie. And I gotta say, it was kind of booty cheeks. Now, a lot of my critiques about the movie delve into spoiler territory, so I'm gonna get my positives out of the way, then of course I'll make my way over to the things I didn't like. And of course, I'll leave a timestamp in case you don't want to have any plot details spoiled. So like the first film, this movie is shot incredibly well. While the first movie's cinematography emphasized the more grimy and complex nature of Gotham, this one does the same thing, but also adding a lot more visual flair to it. Some of the music numbers have great set pieces, and I love how they're framed as 80s talk shows or SNL style sets. Now this will probably be a no-brainer, but the performances in this movie are really good. Joaquin Phoenix doesn't bring anything particularly new to this role, but it's not like he's doing a worse job than he was in the first movie. His performance was good. I liked it just fine. Now of course the real selling point of this movie is the inclusion of Harley Quinn, played by Lady Gaga, and this is another role where she proves that she still fucking got it. If anything, she was my favorite actor out of the whole movie, bringing the same nihilistic crazy energy to Harley Quinn while also just doing her own thing. And with no shocker to anyone, Hildur Gunnadóttir's score is just as good as it was previously. I don't think it has the same impact as it did in the first movie, since this time around we aren't seeing Arthur's progression into insanity, but I still think it worked fine here. But that's all I really have to say in terms of positives, and unfortunately this is where I have to get into a lot of the things that just did not work for me. So yeah, spoiler warning, don't yell at me. I'm going to talk about some major plot points. Alright, let's go. So this movie was marketed as being a musical, which I will talk about in a sec, but this movie is also a court drama centered around whether or not Arthur is sane or if he suffers with double persona. So yeah, this movie is fucking boring. This part of the movie felt like something that was supposed to be tackled in the previous movie, but instead they decided to make it the excuse for why a sequel was even necessary. Because these signs of multiple personality disorder were never touched on in the first movie, and now all of a sudden this movie wants to use this plot point in order to show us Arthur's place in the story. And this turns out to be really stupid, which I will get to in a bit. And it's not like these courtroom scenes are even that engaging, because a majority of the time it's just characters telling us shit that happened in the previous movie and asking Arthur whether or not he committed the acts. Like, dude, I saw the previous movie. I don't need to be reminded about every little detail about Arthur scaring a dwarf after he murdered a former co-worker. Now, like I said before, this movie has some musical numbers, and a vast majority of them are not really good. I maybe liked 2 of them, but the rest of them felt very stilted and placed in the weirdest parts of the movie. Now, I've never been a big fan of musicals, but the best ones utilize them as a way to progress a character's feelings or actions. And in this movie, they just come off as quirky, fun little little bits that come out of nowhere, and it's not like they're visually pleasing from a directing perspective. Most of them are just shot in a dark, disgusting room, and it's never really motivated by anything other than, oh, Joaquin Phoenix is singing ooh woo. I just wish all the musical numbers had more of a grandiose style, or at least be presented in a way that makes them unique and not so directionless. That's a statement that I think best describes my experience with this movie. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan of the first movie, at least there was a story that felt like it had some merit behind being told. But this movie just feels like it exists just for the sake of it. Because narratively, it doesn't have anything to motivate our main characters, and again, just feels like a recap of shit we're already familiar with. And there's shit that's touched on only to never be mentioned again, or what felt like an afterthought. Straight up, it feels like there are scenes that were filmed that would have at least tied in some loose threads, or at least alluded to certain plot points, but for some reason they got cut from the final movie, which I'm pretty sure is the case because the trailers have shots in it that are just not in the movie. Like, I just now, writing the script for this review, just remembered that Harley mentioned to Arthur that she's pregnant, only for that to go nowhere, and by the end of the movie it just didn't really fucking matter because it turns out that Arthur really isn't the Joker, and he was just living in Delulu land because at the end of the movie he's killed by the real Joker. This movie is so fucking messy, dude. I shit you not, a lot of the scenes in this movie feel like they just had a concept of a DC OVA about the Joker's court hearing, and they just smack scenes together in order to get the next set piece or scenes that involve Joker and Harley talking about their cringe love. Like I said, lack of direction. In the end, this is a pretty bad follow-up to a movie that isn't exactly my favorite, so in a sense, it's like this movie was destined to be this way. Obviously, I didn't want this movie to fail, but it's the definitive example of why sequels are best just not happening. It's a shame this movie is as disjointed and messy as it is, because I was really hoping this would be a surprise hit. I just really wanted an excuse to enjoy a DC movie presented as a musical. Shit, a good DC movie in general would have been fine too. But in the end, this movie just ended up being a bad joke. Haha, you should laugh at that. So with all that out of the way, I'm gonna give Joker Folie Deux a 3 out of 10.
What doesn't kill you make you stranger. Ah! Joker, it's simple. We killed the Batman.